Alright, howdy and welcome back. We are reading the Blender User Agreement. This is something that I want to get into and start using. And I just figure, hey, there's not enough videos going on the internet when it comes to actually reading what we're supposed to be doing and making things easier for people. So that's a service I figured I could provide. I'm actually going to turn myself off so we could just enjoy the full view of the Blender User Agreement. Oh, you can't actually make it bigger, so my entire process was for nothing. So, we have the general public license. This is what we have now. This is what we're agreeing to when we sign up for Blender. And you gotta know what you're agreeing to, always. This is the preamble here. The GNU General Public License is a free, copyright-left license for software and other kinds of works. The licenses for most software and other practical works are designed to take away your freedom to share and change the works. By contrast, the GNU General Public License is intended to guarantee your freedom to share and change all versions of a program to make sure it remains free software for all its users. We, the Free Software Foundation, use the GNU General Public License for most of our software. It applies also to any other work released by its authors. You can also apply it to your programs too.
Oh, wow.
When we speak of free software, we are referring to the freedom, not price. Our general public licenses are designed to make sure that you have the freedom to distribute copies for free. Copies of free software. This ware is so soft, you're going to be rubbing it with your fingers. What? Alright, let's see where we at. What were you reading? Alrighty,
I wasn't reading. I was
let's
listening.
see. Designed to make sure you have the freedom to distribute copies of free software and charge for them if you wish, that you receive source code or can get it if you want it, that you can change the software or pieces of it in new free programs, and you know what you can do. You can do these things. To protect your rights, we need to prevent others from denying you these rights or asking you to surrender the rights. Therefore, you have certain responsibilities if you distribute copies of the software or you modify it. Responsibilities to respect the freedom of others. You better fucking respect that freedom.
Hey,
Now,
PG.
PGs. I'm getting all up in your PGs. You better be respecting that freedom. For example, if you distribute copies of such a program, whether gratis, or for a fee, you must pass on to the recipients the same freedoms that you received. You must make sure that they too receive or can get the source code. And you must show them these terms so they know their rights. That's right. So if you use this is free software, motherfucker. You can't keep it away, motherfucker. And developers that use the GNU GPL protect your rights with 2 steps. 1, assert copyright on the software, and 2, offer you this license giving you legal permission to copy, distribute, and or modify it. Goddamn, they got the lawyers in it. And for the developers or the author's protection, the GPL clearly explains that there is no warranty for this free software. For both users and authors' sake, the GPL requires that modified versions be marked as changed, so their problems will not be attributed erroneously to authors of previous versions. Some devices are designed to deny users access to install or run modified versions of the software inside them, although the manufacturer can do so. This is fundamentally incompatible with the aim of protecting the user's freedom to change the software. The systematic pattern of such abuse occurs in the area of products for individuals to use, which is precisely where it is most unacceptable. Unacceptable. We will not take it. We will not stand for it. I will see her sitting down. See, she said she will not stand for it. She will not stand for it.
Okay, calm down, Dad.
Therefore, We have designed this version of the GPL to prohibit the practice for those products. If such problems arise substantially in other domains, we stand ready to extend this provision to those domains in further versions of the GPL, as needed to protect the freedom of users. Finally, every program is threatened constantly by software patents. States should not allow patents to restrict development and use of software on general-purpose computers. But in those that do, we wish to avoid the special danger that patents applied to a free program can make it effectively proprietary. To prevent this, the GPL assures that patents cannot be used to render the program free, excuse me. You know what I mean. Do you know what I mean when I say non-free? It's the opposite of non-fee. I'm saying non-free. That R carries a lot of weight and makes it a completely reverse. That's why it's an R. Alright, now that's stupid. That doesn't even make sense. And the precise terms and conditions for copy and the distribution and modification follow. Here's the terms and conditions. Do you understand me? Are you hearing me now? The definitions. This is part 0. Part 0 for the definitions. This license refers to version 3 of the GNU General Public License. Got that dyslexia hashtag. I don't know. I'm not down and hip with the kids. Copyright also means copyright-like laws that apply in other kinds of works such as semiconductor masks. Hell yeah. Hey, preaching. And the program refers to any copyright work licensed under this license. Each licensee is addressed as you. Licensees and recipients may be individuals or organizations. To modify a work means to copy from or adapt all or part of the work in a fashion requiring copyright permission other than the making of an exact copy. The resultant work is called a modified version of the earlier work or a work based on the earlier work. A covered work means either the unmodified program or a work based on the program. To propagate a work means to do anything with it that might, without permission, make you directly or secondarily liable for infringement under applicable copyright law. Except executing it on a computer or modifying a private copy, propagation includes copies, distribution, with or without modification, making available to the public, or in some countries, other activities as well. To convey means a work. To convey a work, means any kind of propagation that enables other parties to make or receive copies. Mere interaction with a user through a computer network with no transfer of a copy is not conveying. It's not conveying. An interactive user interface displays appropriate legal notices, and to the extent that it includes a convenient and prominently visible feature that 1. Displays an appropriate copyright notice, and 2. Tells the user that there is no warranty for the work, except to the extent that warranties are provided, that licensees may convey the work under this license, and how to view a copy of this license if the interface presents a list of users, commands, or options, which as a menu, a prominent item in the list meets this criterion. 1. Source code. We're at the first principle now. Do we remember what we're doing? This is the terms and conditions. We had the definitions of the terms and conditions, and the source code is another term.
Do you want a water?
I do want a water. That would be so lovely. The source code for a work means the preferred form of the work for making modifications to it. Object code means any non-source form of a work. We have objectified the code. We have taken the source and made it an object, taken a different kind of something and made it something else. Alright. A standard interface means an interface that is either is an official standard defined by a recognized standards body, or in the case of interfaces specified for a particular programming language, one that is widely used among developers working in that language. The system's libraries of an executable work includes anything other than the work as a whole, and A is included in the normal form of packaging a major component, but which is not part of that major component, and B, serves only to enable use of the work with that major component, and to implement a standard interface for which an implementation is available to the public in source code form. A major component in this context means a major essential component, kernel, Windows system, and so on. And the specific operating system, if any, on which the executable work runs, or compiler used to produce the work, or an object code interpreter used to run it. Now let me get a sip of this Coke from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia,
Shut up, it's
sweet Coke.
from Indiana.
Original taste Coke.
You should-
Buy some now, motherfucker. Coke, sponsor me. I love you. And
Wait,
corresponding
now you're mine.
source. You want to read in here?
No,
What do you mean? When can you do what? What do you want to do?
my video.
You want to do a video? What kind of video?
I don't know. I don't care.
We're getting through this license agreement, and then I'll know if we want to actually have this software in our computer.
Okay.
There is a lot to actually read. Holy damn. Alright, where were we? PG.
If I'm in here and I have a PG channel, you're gonna have to.
I don't have a PG channel that this is going on. This is just going to my live stream channel so I can chop it up and make it into other types of videos later. Alright. Do you understand? The corresponding source for a work in an object code form means all the source code needed to generate, install, and for an executable work, run the object code, and to modify the work, including scripts to control these activities. Those activities, I mean those. I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about those. However, it does not include the work system libraries or general purpose tools or generally available free programs which are used unmodified in performing those activities, but which are not part of the work. For example, corresponding source includes interface definition files associated with source files for the work, and the source code for shared libraries and dynamically linked subprograms that the work is specifically designed to require, such as by intimate data communication or control flow between those subprograms and other parts of the work. The corresponding source need not include anything that users can regenerate automatically from other parts of the corresponding source. The corresponding source for a work in a source code form is the same work. Now, basic permissions. You gotta get your basic permissions. Do you understand that you need basic permissions? When you're giving
back around.
When you're giving a work or service, you're giving something to somebody, you gotta have some basic permissions. All rights granted under this license are granted for the term of copyright on the program and are irrevocable, provided by the stated conditions are met. Provided that the stated conditions are met. Conditions are met. This license explicitly affirms your unlimited permission to run the unmodified program. The output from running a covered work is covered by its license only if the output given its content constitutes a covered work. This license acknowledges your right to fair use and other equivalent as provided by copyright law. You may make, run, or propagate covered works that you do not convey without conditions so long as your license otherwise remains in force. You may convey covered works to others for the sole purpose of having them make modifications exclusively for you, or provide you with facilities for running those works, provided that you comply with the terms of this license in conveying all material for which you do not control copyright. Those thus making a run in the covered works for you must do so exclusively on your behalf, under your direction and control, on terms that prohibit them from making any copies of your copyrighted material outside their relationship with you. Conveying under any other circumstances is permitted solely under the conditions stated below. Such licensing is not allowed. Section 10 makes it unnecessary. Protecting users' legal rights from anti-circumvention law. No covered work shall be deemed part of an effective technological measure under any applicable law fulfilling obligations under Article 11 of the WIPO Copyright Treaty adopted on 20 December 1996, or similar laws prohibiting or restricting circumvention of such measures. And when you convey a covered work, you waive any legal power to forbid circumvention of technological measures to the extent of such circumvention is affected by exercising rights under this license. With respect to the covered work, and you disclaim any intention to limit operation or modification of the work as a means of enforcing against the work's users, your or third party's legal rights to prevent circumvention of technological measures. 4. Conveying verbatim copies. You may convey verbatim copies of the program source code as you receive it in any medium, provided that you conspicuously and appropriately publish on each copy an appropriate copyright notice. Keep intact all notices stating that this license and any non-permissive terms added in accord with Section 7 apply to the code, and keep intact all notices of the absence of any warranty, and give all recipients a copy of this license along with the program. So you gotta copy this license, and you do it. Anything that you do with this, you just gotta give the license with it. That way you gotta let them know. Ooh. You may charge any price or no price for each copy that you convey, and you may offer support or warranty protection for a fee. Conveying modified source versions. You may convey a work based on the program or the modifications to produce it from the program in the form of source code over the terms of Section 4, provided that you also meet all of these conditions. Listen, Part A. You must carry prominent notices stating that you modified it and giving a relevant date. B. The work must carry prominent notices. I keep picking up a Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup can thinking it's my Coke. We need a Campbell's Chicken Noodle Coke collab.
No, we don't. That would be disgusting.
Be
Dad,
lovely.
that's gonna fall on your computer.
You're gonna fall on my computer.
Your mom's lawnmower's gonna fall on my computer.
Oh,
So is her underwear.
Oh my God. We done brought the underwear into this, and that's just rude. Alright, now, the work must carry prominent notice stating that this is released under this license and any conditions added under Section 7. This requirement modifies the requirement in Section 4 to keep intact all notices. You must license the entire work as a whole under this license to anyone who comes into possession of a copy. This license will therefore apply, along with any applicable Section 7 additional terms, to the whole of the work and all its parts, regardless of how they are packaged. This license gives no permission to license the work in any other way, but it does not invalidate such permission if you have already separately received it. If the work has interactive user interfaces, each must display appropriate legal notices. However, if a program has interactive interfaces that do not display appropriate legal notices, your work will need to make them do so. A compilation of a covered work with other separate and independent works which are not by their nature extensions of the covered work and which are not combined with it, such as to form a larger program in or on a volume of a storage or distribution medium, is called an aggregate if the compilation and its resulting copyrights are not used to limit the access or legal rights of the compilation users beyond what the individual works permit. Inclusion of the covered work in an aggregate does not cause this license to apply to the other parts of the aggregate. Conveying non-source forms. Now listen up here, darling. You gotta know. You may convey a covered work in object code form under the terms of section 4 and 5, provided that you also convey the machine-readable corresponding source under the terms of this license in one of these ways. Listen, honey, it's A. Convey the object code in or embodied in a physical product, including a physical distribution medium, accompanied by the corresponding source, fixed on a durable physical medium, customarily used for software interchange. What the heck was that voice at the end? Change. B. Listen up, honey. Now, convey the object code in or embodied in a physical product, including a physical distribution medium accompanied by a written offer valid for at least 3 years and valid for as long as you offer spare parts or custom support for that product model, to give anyone who possesses the object code either 1. A copy of the corresponding source for all the software and the product that is covered by this license on a durable physical medium customarily used for software interchange for a price no more than your reasonable cost of physically performing this conveying of source. Or 2. Access the copy of the corresponding source from a network server at no charge. C. You have to convey individual copies of the object code with a copy of the written offer to provide the corresponding source. This alternative is only... What the hell? I can't read. Did you just take a sip of Campbell's? Convey individual copies of the object code with a copy of the written offer to provide the corresponding code. This alternative is allowed only occasionally and non-commercially, and only if you receive the object code with such an offer in accord with subsection 6b. Now D. You must convey the object code by offering access from a designated place, gratis or for a charge, and offer equivalent access for the corresponding source in the same way, through the same place at no further charge. You need not require recipients to copy the corresponding source along with the object code. If the place to copy the object code is a network server, the corresponding source may be on a different server operated by you or a third party that supports equivalent copying facilities, provided you maintain clear directions next to the object code saying where to find the corresponding source. Regardless of what server hosts the corresponding source, you remain obligated to ensure that it is available for as long as needed to satisfy these requirements. And E. Convey the object code using peer-to-peer transmission, provided you inform other peers where the object code and corresponding source of the work are being offered to the general public and no charge under subsection 6D. A separable portion of the object code whose source is not excluded from the corresponding source of a system's library need not be included in conveying the object code work. A user product is either 1. A consumer product, which means any tangible personal property which is normally used for personal, family, or household purposes, or 2. Anything designed or sold for incorporation into a dwelling. In determining whether a product is a consumer product, doubtful cases shall be resolved in favor of coverage. For a particular product received by a particular user, normally used, refers to a typical or common use of that class of product, regardless of the status of the particular user or of the way in which the particular user actually uses or expects or is expected to use the product. A product is a consumer product regardless of whether the product has substantial commercial, industrial, or non-consumer uses unless such uses represent the only significant mode of use for the product, man. Do I accept the terms in the license agreement?
I wouldn't.
I do not.
You don't?
But then that means we can't learn Blender. Oh my god, we're only halfway through though. Installation information for a user product means any methods, procedures, authorization keys, or other information required to install and execute modified versions of a covered work in that user product from a modified version of its corresponding source. The information must suffice to ensure that the continued functioning of the modified object code is in no case prevented or interfered with solely because modification has been made. If you convey an object code work under this section in or with a specifically for use in a user product, and the conveying occurs as part of the transaction in which the rights of possession and the use of user product is transferred to the recipient in perpetuity or for a fixed term, regardless of how the transaction is characterized. The corresponding source conveyed under the section must be accompanied by the installation information, but this requirement does not apply if neither you nor any third party retains the ability to install modified object code on the user product. For example, the work has been installed in ROM. The requirement to provide installation information does not include a requirement to continue or to provide support service, warranty, or updates for a work that has been modified or installed by the recipient, or for the user product in which it has been modified or installed. Access to a network may be denied when the modification itself materially and adversely affects the operation of the network or violates the rules and protocols for the communication across the network. Corresponding source conveyed and installation information provided in accordance with this section must be in a format that is publicly documented and with an implementation available to the public in a source code form. It must require no special password or key for unpacking, reading, or copying. Additional terms, listen up here. Additional permissions are terms that supplement terms for this license by making exceptions from one or more of its conditions. Additional permissions that are applicable to the entire program shall be treated as though they were included in this license to the extent that they are valid under applicable law. If additional permissions apply only to part of the program, that part may be used separately under those permissions, but the entire program remains governed by this license without regard to the additional permissions. When you convey a copy of a covered work, you may, at your option, remove any additional permissions from that copy or from any part of it. Additional permissions may be written to require their own removal in certain cases when you modify the work. You may place additional permissions on material added by you to a covered work, or for which you have or can give appropriate copyright permission, notwithstanding any other provision of this license for material you add to a covered work. You may, if authorized by the copyright holders of that material, supplement the terms of this license with terms A, disclaiming warranty or limiting liability differently from the terms of Section 15 and 16 of this license, or B, requiring preservation of specified reasonable legal notices or author attributions in that material or in the appropriate legal notices displayed by works containing it, or C, prohibiting misrepresentation of the origin of that material or requiring that modified versions of such material be marked in reasonable ways as different from the original version, or limiting the use for publicity purposes of names of licensors or authors of the material, or declining to grant rights under trademark law for use of some trade names, trademarks, or service marks, or requiring indemnification of licensors and authors of that material by anyone who conveys the material or modified versions of it with contractual assumptions of liability to the recipient for any liability that these contractual assumptions directly impose on those licensors and authors. All other non-permissive additional terms are considered further restrictions within the meanings of Section 10. If the program, as you have received it, or any part of it, contains a notice stating that it is governed by this license along with a term that is a further restriction, you may remove that term. If a license document contains a further restriction but permits relicensing or conveying under this license, you may add to a covered work or material governed by the terms of that license document, provided that the further restriction does not survive such relicensing and conveying. If you add terms to a covered work in accord with this section, you must place in a relevant source files a statement of the additional terms that apply to those files and notice indicating where to find the applicable terms. Additional terms, permissive and non-permissive, may be stated in the form of a separately written license or stated as exceptions, as the above requirements apply either way. Termination. You may not propagate or modify a covered work except as expressly provided under this license. Any attempt to otherwise to propagate or modify it is void and will automatically terminate your rights under this license, including any patent license granted under the third paragraph of Section 11. However, if you cease all violation of this license, then your license from a particular copyright holder is reinstated provisionally unless and until the copyright holder explicitly and finally terminates your license, and B, permanently if the copyright holder fails to notify you of the violation by some reasonable means prior to 60 days after the cessation. Moreover, your license from a particular copyright holder is reinstated permanently if the copyright holder notifies you of the violation by some reasonable means. This is the first time you have received the notice of violation of this license for any work from that copyright holder, and you cure the violation prior to 30 days after your receipt of the notice. Termination of your rights under this section does not terminate the license of parties who have received copies or rights from you under this license. Your rights have been terminated and not permanently reinstated, and you do not qualify to receive new license for the same material under Section 10. Acceptance not required for having copies. You are not required to accept this license in order to receive or run a copy of this program. Ancillary propagation of a covered work occurring solely as the consequence of using a peer-to-peer transmission to receive a copy likewise does not require acceptance. However, nothing other than this license grants you permission to propagate or modify any covered work. These actions infringe copyright if you do not accept this license. Therefore, by modifying and propagating a covered work, you may indicate your acceptance of this license to do so. Automatic licensing of downstream recipients. Each time you convey a covered work, the recipient automatically receives a license from the original licensors to run, modify, and propagate that work, subject to the license. You are not responsible for enforcing compliance by third parties with this license. An entity transaction is a transaction transferring control to an organization or substantially all assets of one, or subdividing an organization or merging organizations. If propagation of a covered work results from an entity transaction, each party to that transaction who receives a copy of the work also receives whatever licenses to the work the party's predecessor in interest had or could give under the previous paragraph, plus a right to possession of the corresponding source of the work from the predecessor in interest if the predecessor has it or can get it with reasonable efforts, You may not impose any further restrictions on the exercise of the rights granted or affirmed under this license. For example, you may not impose a license fee, royalty, or other charge for exercise of the rights granted under this license, and you may not initiate litigation, including cross-claim or counterclaim in a lawsuit, alleging that any patent claim is infringed by making, using, selling, or offering sale, or importing the program, or any portion of it. Patents. The contributor is a copyright holder who authorizes use under this license of a program or work on which the program is based. The work thus licensed is called a contributor version. A contributor's essential patent claims are all patent claims owned or controlled by the contributor, whether already acquired or the hereafter acquired, that would be infringed by some manner permitted by this license of making, using, or selling its contributor version, but do not include claims that would be infringed only as a consequence of further modification of the contributor's version. For purposes of this definition, control includes the right to grant patent sublicenses in a manner consistent with the requirements of this license. Each contributor grants you a non-exclusive, worldwide, royalty-free patent license under the contributor's essential patent claims to make, use, sell, offer for sale, import, and otherwise run, modify, and propagate the contents of its contributor version. In the following 3 paragraphs, a patent license is any express agreement or commitment, however denominated, not to enforce a patent, such as an express permission to practice a patent, or covenant not to sue for patent infringement. To grant such a patent and license to a party means to make such an agreement or commitment not to enforce a patent against a party. We're almost there.
Are you sure? Because it's taking forever.
If you convey a covered work knowingly relying on a patent license and the corresponding source of the work is not available for anyone to copy free of charge and under the terms of this license, then you must either 1. Cause the corresponding source to be so available, or 2. Arrange to deprive yourself of the benefit of the patent license for this particular work, or 3. Arrange in a manner consistent with the requirements of this license to extend the patent license to downstream recipients. Knowingly relying means you have an actual knowledge that but for the patent license, you're conveying the covered work in a country, or your recipient's use of the covered work in a country would infringe 1 or more identifiable patents in that country that you have reason to believe are valid. If pursuant to or in connection with a single transaction or arrangement, you convey or propagate by procuring conveyance of a covered work, and grant patent license to some of the parties receiving the covered work, authorizing them to use, propagate, modify, or convey a specific copy of a covered work, then the patent license you grant is automatically extended to all recipients of the covered work and works based on it. A patent license is discriminatory if it does not include within the scope of its coverage, prohibits the exercise of, or is conditioned on the non-exercise of 1 or more of the rights that are specifically granted under this license. You may not convey a covered work if you are a party to an arrangement with a third party that is in the business of distributing software, under which you make payment to the third party based on the extent of your activity of conveying the work, under which the third party grants to any of your parties who would receive the covered work from you a discriminatory patent license, A, in connection with copies of the covered work conveyed by you, or copies made from those copies, or B, primarily for and in connection with specific products or compilations that contain the covered work, unless you entered into that arrangement or the patent license was granted prior to 28 March of 2007. That was all one sentence. Why was that one sentence? Nothing in this license shall be construed as excluding or limited any applied license or other defenses to infringement that may otherwise be available to you under applicable patent law. We're so close.
Yeah, well, I already got 2 boards, so I'm making a card.
You could make a card? Hell yeah.
It's Bus Appreciation Week next week.
Awesome. No surrender of others' freedoms.
Monday was Janitor Appreciation Day.
Did you make the janitor a card?
Yep.
Hell yeah.
All the janitors.
Good deal. Who all are your janitors? Oh wait, don't. That will be dossing them right now. Alright. No surrender of others' freedom. If conditions are imposed on you, whether by court order, agreement, or otherwise, that contradict the conditions of this license, they do not excuse you from the conditions of this license. If you cannot convey a covered work so as to satisfy simultaneously your obligations under this license and any other pertinent obligations, as a consequence you may not convey it at all. For example, if you agree to the terms that obligate you to collect a royalty for further conveyance from those to whom you convey the program, the only way you could satisfy both of those terms and this license would be to refrain entirely from conveying the program. Use with the GNU Afro General Public License. Notwithstanding any other provision of this license, you have permission to link or combine any covered work with a work licensed under version 3 of the GNU Afro General Public License into, oh my lord, a single combined work, and to convey the resultant work. The terms of this license will continue to apply to the part which is the covered work, but the special requirements of the GNU Afro General Public License Section 13 concerning interaction through a network will apply to the combination as such. Revised versions of this license. Free Software Foundation may publish revised or new versions of the GNU General Public License from time to time. Such new versions will be similar in spirit to the present version, but may differ in detail to address new problems or concerns. Each version is given a distinguishing version number. If the program specifies that a certain version of the GNU General Public License or any later version applies to it, you have the option of following the terms and conditions either of that numbered version or any later version published by the Free Software Foundation. If the program does not specify a version number of the GNU General Public License, you may choose any version ever published by the Free Software Foundation. If the program specifies that a proxy can decide which future versions of the GNU General Public License can be used, that proxy's public statement of acceptance of a version permanently authorizes you to choose that version of the program for the program. Alright, later license versions may give you additional or different permissions. However, no additional obligations are imposed on any author or copyright holder as a result of your choosing to follow a later version. Disclaimer of warranty. There is no warranty for the program, to the extent permitted by applicable law, except when otherwise stated in writing. The copyright holders and or the parties provide the program as is, without warranty of any kind, either expressed or implied, including but not limited to the implied warranties by merchantability and fitness of particular purpose. The entire risk as to the quality and performance of the program is with you. Should the program prove defective, you assume the cost of all necessary servicing, repair, or correction. Limitation of liability. In no event, unless required by applicable law or agreed to in writing, will copyright holder or any other party who modifies and conveys the program is permitted above be liable to you, or including any other general, special, incidental, or consequential damages arising. I'm hurting my throat. arising out of their use or inability to use the program, including but not limited to loss of data or data being rendered inaccurate, or losses sustained by you or third parties, or a failure of the program to operate with any other programs, even if such holder of other party has been advised of the possibility of such damages. Interpretations of Section 15 and 16. If the disclaimer or warranty and limitation of liability provided above cannot be given local legal effect according to their terms, reviewing courts shall apply local law that most closely approximates an absolute waiver of all civil liability in connection with the program, unless a warranty or assumption of liability accompanies a copy of the program in a return for a fee. End of terms and conditions. How to apply these terms to your new programs. If you develop a new program and you want it to be the greatest possible use to the public, the best way to achieve this is to make it free software which everyone can redistribute and change under these terms. To do so, attach the following notices to the program. It is safest to attach them to the start of each source file to most effectively state the exclusion of warranty, and each file should have at least the copyright line and a pointer to where the full notice is found.
Hey, Dad.
No.
When I was coloring it, I kind of got it on
I guess that's fine.
the box.
I guess that's fine. I don't see any reason it wouldn't be fine.
Does it?
What is 3D?
31!
That says 31?
Yeah, that's my one.
Oh, it's just really wide.
Yeah.
You got a wide one. 31. We love you, please never leave. 31. Heck yeah, that's awesome. And then it gives you some code to use. It's neat. Where are we at?
Alright, are you done yet?
Almost. I'm very, very, very close.
No?
This program is free
Alright,
software.
I'm about to chug some.
You can redistribute it and or modify it under the terms of the GNU General Public License as published by the Free Software Foundation, either version 3 of the license or, at your option, any later version. This program is distributed in the hope that it will be useful, but without any warranty, with